My boss accused me of stealing 10, so I quit. The smell of roasted beans was the only thing that ever really calmed me. 6 years, hundreds of gallons of lattes, and thousands of grumpy customers later, the daily grind was practically stitched into my DNA. It wasn't glamorous, but it paid sort of, and I could almost manage my student loan payments. Almost. Mark, the owner, meant well. He was usually good for a laugh, a terrible pun, and a free cup of coffee if you looked particularly stressed. But he was also, let's just say, frugal. He squeezed every penny until Lincoln screamed. We used the cheapest milk, the oldest equipment, and the bathroom hand dryer sounded like a dying walrus. My shift ended at 3 p.m. I counted the till 347.12. It should have been 347.2. $10 short. I recounted. Same result. Panic fluttered in my chest. I hadn't been distracted. I hadn't given anyone extra change. I hadn't taken anything. Mark arrived right on time, his brow already furrowed with worry. Everything okay, Sarah? Place looks a little slow today. Yeah, well, the till's $10 short, I said, trying to keep my voice level. I counted it twice. I don't know where it went. He didn't say anything for a moment. He just stared at me, his eyes narrowed. Emily, another barista who was staying late to clean, shifted uncomfortably behind him. The dying walrus sputtered in the background. $10, he repeated, his voice low. You sure? Mark, I just told you, I recounted. I'm not stupid. I'm not saying you're stupid, Sarah. I'm just saying we've had discrepancies before. Small ones, sure, but they add up. My blood began to boil. Are you accusing me of stealing? He held up his hands, palms out. No, not accusing. Just asking questions. $10 is $10. It's my livelihood, you know. Rent's due. And my loan payments are due. I snapped. I work my butt off here. I'm always on time. I cover shifts. I deal with the impossible orders. And you think I'd steal $10? He looked at Emily, then back at me. He opened his mouth, closed it, and opened it again. Look, just be more careful, okay? Maybe you gave someone too much change. Just pay attention. So that's it? You're just going to assume I did something wrong? Without any proof. I was shaking now, partly from anger, partly from humiliation. Emily was avoiding eye contact, fiddling with a rag. I didn't say, you know what? I quit. The words exploded out of me before I could stop them. Mark's jaw dropped. You can't be serious. I need you, Sarah. It's Friday night. I have nobody else. Too bad, I said, grabbing my bag and walking towards the door. Maybe you should have thought about that before you accused me of being a thief. I stormed out, the bell above the door jingling like a mocking laugh. The smell of coffee, usually comforting, now felt suffocating. David, my boyfriend, was waiting for me at our apartment. He saw my face and immediately pulled me into a hug. Rough day? He asked, his voice gentle. I burst into tears, recounting the whole sorry story. David listened patiently, rubbing my back. That's messed up, Sarah, he said finally. $10? Really? He accused you of stealing $10? I know, right? It's not even about the money. It's about the principle. It's about the fact that he doesn't trust me after all this time. Well, good riddance, David said. You deserve better. Let's get you a new job, something where you're appreciated. The next few days were a blur of online applications and awkward interviews. The pay was always terrible, the hours were always long, and nobody seemed to care that I knew the precise temperature to steam milk for a perfect latte. My confidence was plummeting faster than my bank account. Maybe I'm not cut out for this, I said to David one evening, staring at the rejection email on my laptop screen. Don't say that, he said, taking my hand. You're amazing. You're hardworking, you're reliable, and you make a killer cappuccino. Mark's an idiot. You'll find something better. But better wasn't happening. And the more I thought about it, the angrier I got. Mark had embarrassed me, questioned my integrity, and left me jobless, all over $10. Then, it hit me. I couldn't let him get away with it, not without a little payback. My petty revenge plan began to take shape. It wouldn't be illegal, it wouldn't be violent, but it would be inconvenient. First, the online reviews. I created a burner email address and started leaving honest reviews of The Daily Grind on every platform I could find. The coffee was lukewarm and tasted burnt. The pastries were stale and overpriced. I saw a cockroach near the sugar packets. I was careful to include specific details to make them sound believable, but nothing that could directly tie me to them. Next, the fake catering orders. I'd call The Daily Grind early in the morning pretending to be from a local business. We need 15 lattes and a dozen assorted muffins delivered by 9 a.m. Mark would scramble to fulfill the order, only for me to call back an hour later and cancel, claiming the meeting had been postponed. I used different names and voices each time. Finally, the subtle whispers. I started frequenting other coffee shops in the neighborhood, striking up conversations with regulars, casually mentioning my experience at the Daily Grind. Yeah, Mark's a nice guy, but he's always cutting corners to save a buck. And he's a bit suspicious of his employees, if you know what I mean. It wasn't much, but it was enough to make me feel a little bit better. A few weeks later, I ran into Emily at the grocery store. She looked tired and stressed. "Hey, Sarah," she said, avoiding my gaze. "How are you?" "Hanging in there," I said, trying to sound upbeat. "How's things at the Daily Grind?" She sighed. "Not great, to be honest. Business has been slow. Mark's been really stressed out. He's convinced someone's sabotaging him." I raised an eyebrow. "Really? Wonder why?" She looked at me guiltily. "Look, Sarah, I need to tell you something. About that day, the day the $10 went missing, my heart pounded. What about it? I remember Mark taking $10 from the till that day. He said he needed it for lunch. He said he'd pay it back later, but I never saw him do it." My jaw dropped. "Are you serious? He accused me of stealing when he was the one who took the money." She nodded, tears welling up in her eyes. "I should have said something then. I'm so sorry, Sarah." Suddenly, the petty revenge felt hollow. I didn't want to just inconvenience Mark. I wanted to expose him. The next day, I went to the police station. I told them everything, from the missing $10 to Mark's accusation to Emily's confession. The officer I spoke with was skeptical, but he took my statement. He said he'd look into it. Days turned into weeks. I heard nothing from the police. I felt deflated. Maybe Mark would get away with it after all. Then, one afternoon, I got a call from a local news reporter. She had heard about the situation at the Daily Grind and wanted to talk to me. Apparently, Emily had contacted them, wanting to tell her side of the story. I met the reporter at a small cafe. I told her everything, showed her the police report, and gave her Emily's contact information. The story ran online the next day. It was brutal. The headline screamed, "Coffee shop owner accused of theft, employee harassment." The article detailed Mark's frugality, his accusations against me, and Emily's confession. The backlash was swift and severe. Customers boycotted the Daily Grind. Negative reviews flooded the internet. Mark's reputation was ruined. A few days later, I drove past the Daily Grind. The windows were papered over. A for sale sign hung on the door. Mark was gone. I felt a pang of guilt. Had I gone too far? Had my petty revenge spiraled out of control? But then I remembered Mark's face when he accused me of stealing. I remembered the humiliation, the anger, the feeling of being completely undervalued. He deserved what he got, and, more importantly, I deserved better. I finally landed a job at a new coffee shop called The Bean Scene. It was modern, stylish, and the pay was significantly better than what Mark had offered. The owner, a young woman named Chloe, appreciated my experience and my passion for coffee. One morning, a familiar face walked into the Bean Scene. It was Mrs. Henderson, the elderly woman who always ordered a black coffee and a scone at the Daily Grind. "Sarah," she said, her eyes widening with recognition. "Is that you, Mrs. Henderson? It's so good to see you." "I heard what happened," she said, shaking her head sadly. "That Mark was always a bit of a penny pincher. I'm glad you found a better place." She ordered her usual, and as I handed her the coffee, she smiled. "This is much better than anything I ever had at the Daily Grind." Soon, other regulars from the Daily Grind started coming to the Bean Scene. They told me how much they missed my coffee, my smile, and my friendly conversation. They were loyal customers, and they helped me build a new life. One evening, as I was closing up the bean scene, I received a message on my phone. It was a screenshot of an online news article with the headline, "Former coffee shop owner spotted working on oil rig in Alaska." I smiled slightly and deleted the message. It wasn't about Mark anymore. It was about Mark anymore. It was about proving my worth, clearing my name, and finding a place where I was valued and respected. I turned off the lights, locked the door, and walked out into the night. The smell of roasted beans followed me, a comforting reminder of how far I had come.